Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Plumbing is we renovate two houses that we purchased this year for under $1,500.
How was your week so far?
Construction.
Your week?
Teaching this plumbing on houses. It's
It was hectic.
9 years.
You guys got stuff going on? Isn't that what you're supposed to do in college as long as you're passing your classes? What's that?
I said, I don't know if I'm passing my classes.
But what about last semester? How'd you do last semester?
I wasn't here last semester.
So this is your first ever? That's the hard part is when it is your first in college, it's like a shock and you've got all this freedom and then you're like, oh shoot, what are your classes?
What happened? What are my classes?
Yeah, what are your classes?
I'm a business major, so I have an online business class.
That makes it harder, doesn't it? Online stuff. You like online, but I hear 60-40 people hate online, people like online.
No, I definitely hate online. I think my downfall this semester are my morning classes.
Okay.
'Cause
Okay.
next year, my classes are gonna start at 12.
It's
9:30 is too early.
I know. Why do they put you in them? Right. Well, this one's a required, but why did they put you in the 9:30 one? Because there is a 1 o'clock one. Is it because you have another 1 o'clock
I
class?
think when I was making my schedule, I was like, yeah, in college, I'm gonna be so productive.
Right. Yeah.
And
Which you still can be, and you still can have fun if you balance it between having fun. I'm sure everybody online, I see Jaden Ward, Erica Fogel, Lyric Lewis, Jalen Bennett, Everett Little, and you're in person. I'm reviewing like the code of ethics because business has a lot of code of ethics. You ever take a business ethics class? Have you gone to college anywhere else?
no.
Okay. Sometimes people transfer in a lot. Like my wife transferred in 70. She's up to 90 hours because you know how many you have to graduate for business, right? She did business because it was all online and she has 2 kids at home. They want you to have 121 hours and then your check sheet. So did I show you what those check sheets look like? So you have one for business, and as long as you're following that, you're good. I'm trying to duck under the PowerPoint for the TV for folks. So, any questions about it? You got the first paper in, right? Were you able to get? Okay. So, discussions for extra credit. I know some people. Have the discussions in. I'm going to keep them all open. So for folks that are doing all of it, the paper isn't due till midnight, so that's good news. Paper number 2, so every 2 or 3 weeks we'll have the next paper, and ours today is on ethics. I wonder if it's backwards for like people that are online. It's social work, values, and ethics. So, gosh, I almost want to sit on the stool so I'm away from the. There it is. Okay, away from the filming. So values and ethics. I bet you'll take business ethics your junior year because there's a lot in business ethics. Actually, it's kind of crazy because they're like. You ever heard of the movie Fight Club before?
Yeah.
They put up a pretty interesting predicament. So, in Fight Club, I don't know if you've seen it. They go in and steal. You ever heard of liposuction? Shoot, I want to show you that one. But have you ever heard of liposuction? Fight Club, or like Botox, or like where they're fixing soap scene. So here's what they do, and this is a business that they created, and I'm not sure if it's ethical or not. So, it's 1 minute and 11 seconds. So I want to start with business ethics, and then we're going to go over to social work ethics, which they all run together. So if you've never seen this before, it's kind of gross. I'll warn you. Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
So they make soap.
As the fat renders, the towels float to the surface, like in Boy Scouts.
I can imagine you as a Boy Scout.
Keep stirring. Once the towel hardens, you skim off a layer of glycerin. If you were to add nitric acid, you got nitroglycerin. If you were then to add sodium nitrile, dash of sawdust, you got dynamite. Yeah, with enough soap, we could blow up just about anything.
Tyler was full of useful information.
Now, ancient peoples found that clothes got clean when they washed them at a certain point in the river. You know why? No. Human sacrifice were the ones made on those above this river. Bodies burned, water seeped through the wood and ashes to create lye. This is lye, the crucial ingredient. Once it mixed with the melted fat of the bodies, thick white soapy discharge crept into the river. That's your head, please.
So the dude's kind of weird. I'm going to go ahead. Okay. What I wanted was the stealing fat scene. So that's further on. But so their business is making soap. You have any friends that like sell soap or make lipstick, lip gloss? We have one because there's a bunch of free chapsticks in our student lounge there. You see the student lounge right over there? Like if you look out the door, there's cupcakes that are free for everybody right nowadays. They're left over from Valentine's Day. You might be able to see them from there. So I'm hoping this explains how they started.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and I would like.
So Tammy has a commercial, and we're not going to watch it.
To make soap.
Really?
To make soap, first we render fat.
So liposuction is when they like pull the fat out of your butt or your stomach or whatever, and it's a way to lose weight without dieting, if that makes sense. So what they're stealing fat from is a liposuction agency. It's actually really gross. So is this ethical or is this not? I don't know. You know, it's like they certainly have a good business plan, but it might be illegal. But people make soap out of animal fats, maybe not of human
This
fat.
soap has to be just right. So the best fat for making soap comes from humans. Wait, what is this place? Liposuction clinic. Aha, Peter. Richie's craziest fat.
All right, I'll stop it. So, and to explain it, because it is kind of confusing without the explanation. So these guys make soap for their business. We are starting in on ethics because that's what your paper is over tonight. You guys might have already done your paper and turned it in. I don't know, but I want to review it if that's okay. Like what you have to put into the paper.
Yeah,
Is that-
I didn't start it.
Is that cool?
I didn't start it.
Okay, that's fine. So social work has its own code of ethics. Business has some ethics too. In this situation, this is a movie called Fight Club. I think it was made in 1999. You may have heard of it or not. It's like a famous movie. I'm going to start it over because it's only a minute 19. But to make soap, do you have any friends that make soap or chapstick? Do you know what some of the main ingredients are? It's actually oil. I should say it's oil. So you can use animal fats or you can use olive oil. I'm a vegetarian, so I use olive oil. Like my wife makes soap and she does chapsticks. That's what some of the free chapsticks in the student lounge are next to the free cupcakes left over from Valentine's Day. So in this case, these guys in Fight Club, and this is whether a question, is this an ethical business? Because it might be illegal what they're doing, but it also might be ethical. So they found a way to get free oil, which is body fat. Do you know what liposuction is? So they're stealing fat from a liposuction clinic. It's really gross.
To make soap.
So warning.
Really?
To make soap, first we render fat. The salt balance has to be just right. So the best fat for making soap comes from humans. Liposuction clinic.
So gross.
richest, creamiest fat in the world. Fat Billy.
As the fat renders, the tallow split to the surface, like in Boy Scouts.
Hard to imagine you as a Boy Scout.
I'm not gonna lie.
So what he says is like, you know, some people pay to get the fat taken out of their body, and then he makes a super fancy high grade soap and sells it back to them like a rich fancy person at like $10 a bar. So that's their business plan. You know, that would be illegal to steal it. Again, is it ethical? Maybe they could find a way to buy it from the clinic instead of. I think it's considered biohazard. So like that's why we usually use animal fat, because like you'll cut up a cow and like get the fat from the cow. I don't know what kind of oils they use for soap making. I prefer olive oil just because I'm a vegetarian. It's been 20 years since I've eaten it. So that's kind of a quick, you know, that's more business ethics. Now with values and ethics in social work, I want to make sure there aren't any clinic questions online. Tiana, for your paper tonight, so the values and ethics in social work, you can straight up Google the code of ethics, you know, and if you have a phone or a computer, just start typing this in now. That's fine. You get the code of ethics from the National Association of Social Workers website, so it's like NASW. The code of ethics gives you all of the ethics that we use in practice. And I know I reviewed some of this a week ago, but because the paper's not due till midnight, I want to review it again so you guys are up to date. As we had our site visit this week on Tuesday, that's why I had you watch Paper Tigers, which you get to see some ethical dilemmas in that. And it's also going to be in the next discussion for extra credit. So ethics are usually concerned with what is right. You know, like with the soap making thing, is that right or wrong that they're using human fat for the soap? You know, it might be wrong that they don't disclose that it's human fat. You know what I mean? Like if they said it was animal fat, but it's not, it's actually human fat, that's kind of wrong and gross. In social work, similar, we're concerned with what is right. We express the standards of conduct. There are also microethics for direct practice, you know, like I can't take payment from a client to help get them off probation. Erica says it's wrong. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's kind of gross. It's a good movie if you have a chance to watch Fight Club. Have you guys seen 13th? It's another documentary on Netflix. It's about the 13th Amendment. I'll fire that one up after this. But so microethics is like when I'm counseling you one-on-one, like I'm individually counseling. Macroethics is what like guides social policy. Like we should have a policy that no one should be starving and hungry out on the streets in the middle of February or cold in the middle of February and homeless. So we have a policy to help them with housing, things of that nature. Values of social work, that has a focus shift. So from like morality of individual clients to moral imperatives of the social work profession. So our value base, and they start listing them. Some of the social work values, and these are what you can write about: the nature of humankind, how to bring about change to serve people, social justice, like homelessness and housing. How do we make sure to serve the homeless and imprisoned and visit, you know, train them so they don't have to go back to prison for recidivism issues. And then we always believe in the intrinsic dignity and worth of the human beings. So that's a big part. Oh, I didn't know the clock tower is like right outside. That's kind of a cool little video shot. So it says we're at Central State, the only surviving thing from the tornado. Here's our value context. So we have all these different values we consider. So of society, the social work profession, your agency you work for. Have either one of you ever volunteered at anything, anywhere like a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter? Which one?
Okay, Gleaners.
What's it called?
Gleaners. Food drive.
Okay, yeah. So then the food drive would be like for a food pantry and then what city again? I always ask the city.
Food drive.
Okay. And there's probably a large need in Detroit, like we have in Cincinnati. Like we have our food pantry at St. Leo's serves 1,200 people a month to 1,500 people a month. So it's a big, and we have like 20 food pantries. So with food inflation, it's gotten a lot worse too. So yeah, the agency, that would be like St. Leo's Food Pantry. The value system, value-laden nature of personal and social problems, and then values of social worker. Socio-political cultural context. So this is showing like how they all intersect. You know, like there might be just one sliver that the problem covers, but then there's you as the social worker trying to help the client with the problem within their family, then an agency that serves either homeless, hungry, or imprisoned, and then the socio-political cultural context. Like, is there funding for affordable housing? Is there funding for a food pantry? Like, do we feed the hungry or do we let them die on the street? Usually in America, we feed them. There are some countries that I think you would starve. And I know that sounds insane, but currently Afghanistan is one of them. They don't have money for like the kids in the street in Afghanistan because of the way that we probably is. A D2L train. Oh no, light rain expected soon. That's weird. Was it raining when you guys came in? Like heavy or light?
The sun was out.
Because I was drenched and my shoes almost started like soaking through my socks. I hate that. I was about to go back and change my shoes because I have totally waterproof shoes in my car, but they're kind of warm for a humid day. All right, so the purpose of the Code of Ethics, again, this could be put into your paper. So the purpose is to prescribe expectations for professional conduct. It helps us as professionals guide our decision making. That could be the same in what business ethics. Are you a social work major or are you a psych?
Social work.
Okay. So yes, this is our code of ethics. It is similar to psychology. There will be things shared by a business code of ethics or a business ethics class. It helps provide a standard for assessing competence. And I know they detail this better in the book. I hope you guys still have free online access to the book. You can like quote the book for real in this chapter 5. Regulate professional behavior and evaluate professional performance. They probably even give you a good example in the book of an ethical dilemma that you could quote, you know, just like is asked in the assignment. So the social work code of ethics, it defines ethical responsibilities to 3 folks. So starting with your clients, like I can't take money, they have somebody pay me off to get them off probation. 2 colleagues. A lot of agencies, you can't commingle, which means like I can't sleep with a partner that works at the same agency with me. And if you're like dating, you probably should work at different agencies. And in practice settings, sometimes they'll have different ethics there. In the social work code of ethics, as professionals, it gives us some rules. To the social work profession, it gives us rules that we should advocate for change. To the broader society, and then this is actually your next paper. So the International Federation of Social Work and the IASSW has their own ethics and social work and statement of principle, because there you're going over, international has different countries and the rules for social workers there, which has gotten tricky with the pandemic. Like we can't go, if you're near Detroit, have you ever been to Canada?
No, just right across.
It is.
Downtown, right across the river.
And you used to be able to just cross with your license.
Mhm.
No, I don't think you can anymore.
No.
You need a $300 passport, or do you need like
I
Back-
think it's a enhanced license, so basically you get like a little star in the corner of your license.
Oh, so that one works?
Mhm.
Really? I chose not to get that one as I had a passport.
It's either or.
Okay. And they have the vaccine passport, I think, right? You can't go across unless if you show, and that's what the trucker protest is about in Canada right now. Have either one of you heard about that? It's nowhere in the news. And they shut down the capital of Canada. And a new one started in California, is driving all the way to the capital of the United States of America. And it's about like forced vaccination. Their big thing is that we should be able to choose, you know, like they're not saying the vaccine is good or bad. It's when you force a medical intervention on somebody that was founded as wrong and unethical in 1945 because of Nazi Germany. And have you guys ever heard of the Tuskegee Airmen?
Yeah.
That's a movie now, right? So do you know what happened with that situation, with the ethics there? This is another reason we have ethics. And you can look it up, that's fine. I could even show you a clip or a movie about it. I'll see if I can find a better clip. This is why some people do have forced medical intervention hesitancy because of these guys, and why we have the code of ethics. How do you spell Tuskegee?
I got to meet in like 2015 whoever was still alive.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's amazing that they freaking survived it. It was messed up what they did. Like, point blank, messed up. And this is another reason why we have the ethics, not just after 1945 and what happened in Nazi Germany. I want to see if there's one that has the best. Because there was one that was like 10 minutes. Anybody online know the Tuskegee Airmen? Here's what happened. Okay. This is messed up too, but this has to be put out there. And this is also why I'm a little disappointed. Oh, I hate these Quizlets. They're like a mess. Also kind of why they like, you know, like in 1945, since Nazi Germany, they founded that you should be able to choose your own medical intervention because we all have different bodies. We all have different things. And hopefully this gives you a brief of what happened. I almost feel like anything sponsored from a government website is not going to tell you the true story. I hate to say that. Hopefully this one does it. So here's what happened.
This is Lumen.
And of course you need your hack your metabolism. That's weird. That's a weird looking. What is she smoking a bowl? That's weird too. To help you. All right.
In July of 1972, the Washington Star newspaper broke the story about the controversial Tuskegee Institute syphilis experiment. For 40 years, from 1932 until 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service, in partnership with Tuskegee, secretly studied the effects of untreated syphilis in African American men in Alabama. 600 black men, 399 with syphilis and 201 without the disease, were induced to participate in the experiment. Nearly all of them were poorly educated, impoverished sharecroppers. In exchange for participating, they were promised free medical exams, hot meals, and a burial stipend. The men with syphilis were not told they were infected and were not treated, even after penicillin was discovered to be an effective cure for the disease in the 1940s. Over the course of the experiment, 128 participants died of syphilis or syphilis-related complications. In 1972, when the paper exposed the details, the experiment was still ongoing. It incited public outrage over the unethical treatment of the participants, which led to the experiment's termination that November. The following year, the NAACP filed suit on behalf of the survivors. The federal government settled the lawsuit for $10 million. It also agreed to provide survivors and their infected family members with free medical services.
So that kind of cheapens the whole, you know, it's a good brief. Do you guys know what syphilis is? It's actually what killed Al Capone. It's a sexually transmitted disease. I feel like sometimes people call it the drip because it's like an antibiotic would cure it. So like you would have an infection, it's a STD, but if you took an antibiotic, penicillin, it's gone. So these guys were all, there's some videos that explain it in detail, but they were given pills that they were told was going to like make them better, and some of the pills were just placebos, like a sugar pill. And so they were lied to, and that was where a lot of the ethics come in. That's also where forced medical interventions have been shunned away from, because there's a lot of folks that don't see. Is that from Bill Clinton? That's interesting. So, what do you all think would be like the ethical dilemma there? Why is that unethical? Like, what happened? I know that's just a 3-minute brief. Why do you think it's unethical?
Because they didn't know what was happening to their body.
Syphilis. So, do you guys know who Al Capone was or ever heard of him before?
Yeah.
He was like a gangster in Chicago. He also had syphilis, but he was from the 1930s. He didn't know he had it, and it eventually deteriorates your brain. Like the infection spreads throughout your body. It gets to your heart, it goes to your brain, and then you show signs of going crazy, like mental illness and things of that nature. So if you're not given treatment, you will die from this. And as they said, in 1940, we found out penicillin kills syphilis. As easy as that. You got a 10-day antibiotic. We've all taken, actually, I'm allergic to penicillin, but we've all taken an antibiotic before. You know what I mean? So there are other antibiotics that would cure it. And that's as easy. It's like a $10 antibiotic, even if you don't have insurance. And these dudes were not given it 32 more years, from 1940 until 1972, as their body deteriorated, as they probably had mental health problems, as they're like maybe fighting with their poor wife because they're mentally deteriorating from an infection on the brain. And all they wanted to do, the government wanted to study it. And it's like that, and that's also why after Nazi Germany, when they would do weird experiments on the Jews, they said you cannot do a forced medical intervention on anybody. If they want to die of something, allow them to die of it. And that's kind of where they came from. So I want to see if this may be a little longer, but this is, yeah, so these kind of cover the ethics, in my opinion, even a little bit better. Oh, Bill Clinton apologized for it. Like, I'm sorry, your dad.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It took him, he gave a 14-minute apology. So that was nice of him. And $10 million is also nice, but I still don't think that's enough to cover like the pain and suffering. And like, I understand in 1971, we still had like silver dollars. So 10 million may have been worth 25 times more than what 10 million is today, because silver ounce is like 25 an ounce. But that's still only $250 million for how many families did they say that it affected? So aspects, it is unethical because they didn't tell them the truth about what they were taking, so they can choose what they want to do. And so, yeah, that's another one. Like, they weren't given, in research, they call that a disclosure statement. Even in social work and counseling, we sign a disclosure statement. Like, I agree to have counseling services. I agree to be seen by somebody in counseling. I want to see if there was any other ones that were, maybe the White House would have a better breakdown of the. So you met one of these guys? How old was he, do you think? Because I bet you he was old, like that old, or like.
Yeah, he was that old.
Okay. That's Carl Johnson. And then to survive it, because obviously, like, it sounded like 195 of the 200 died. So these are like the 5 dudes that maybe their body was that strong, was able to fight the virus. Kind of the same with like coronavirus. They're like, no, you can't fight the virus. You've got to take this medical intervention. So the protest now is about this forced intervention.
In New York, the police officers were protesting the firefighters.
The trash collectors. Did you see that? So this is probably why we don't see a lot about it either, because it is a government intervention. Like right now, the White House is forcing it. So I think that they're going to censor anything.
And like Coachella this year, the music festival, they're like waiving everything. Like you can come without a vaccine, without a negative COVID test.
So they've changed, yeah, because of this. Because you're right, isn't it been for the past 2 years? You got to have all this like a vaccine passport. All right, so this is more pertinent to the U.S., but it's been going on in Canada for 3.5 weeks. And it's hard to find on the news. It is very hard. Actually, this is what happened yesterday. So I'm going to try to watch this because I don't understand what this one was. This is kind of how they're fighting it. This is their president. He looks like he's 22. There's a theory that this dude looks like all right, I know I'm going off topic, but Trudeau Che connection. Because his mom and dad visited Che when he was born in the 70s. I was born in the 70s. So everybody puts his picture next to who they think was his actual dad. As they said his dad was the Prime Minister of Canada back then, and he visited Cuba. And here's his mom, and they said his parents were swingers. So it's very, I swear. So this is obviously maybe conspiracy theory, but look at some of the resemblance pictures. Like there's a few that you're like, wait a minute, what? What does he look like? So yeah, if you look it up, well, there you go too. Look at those two. That is the Prime Minister of Canada. His mom and dad are white, and then this is Fidel Castro, Cuban, Latin American. Isn't that crazy? I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a conspiracy theory, but I always find these things interesting to at least interesting. I've never seen a young picture with a shaved Che. So anyway, all right. I did not mean to do that either. So he imposed a measure yesterday that I don't know exactly. I mean, it's like -10 up there. So it's really cold. And they basically, what they did to protest was shut down the Capitol. They all parked in the middle of the Capitol and said, we're not moving until you take away this mandate. So it's a nonviolent protest the way Gandhi and Martin Luther King would have protested. Like this is a civil rights problem that this is being forced on us to be able to work, to be able to grocery shop. So here was his response, and I haven't seen it since. It's kind of an interesting.
On the American side of the busiest land crossing between the U.S. and Canada, not a wheel is turning.
Is that Detroit? Okay. So that's your hometown. They shut this bridge down too.
Traffic on the Ambassador Bridge had been stopped in both directions. Now, on the other side, from Canada to the U.S., just a trickle of trucks is allowed through. On Monday, hundreds of angry truckers disrupted North America's most bustling international commercial connector. And they say they'll keep it up until vaccine mandates and other COVID-19 restrictions are abolished on both sides of the border. In a heated exchange in Canada's parliament, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insists Canada won't be bullied.
You can't end a pandemic with blockades. You can't end a pandemic by decreeing it. You can't even end it by legislation. You need to end it with science. You need to end it with public health measures. And even as Canadians are tired and impatient for it to end, we are going to continue to be there for them, to support them through it, and to make sure we do everything necessary to end this pandemic.
The protesting truckers say they'll continue their blockade as long as it takes. So far, police have been reticent to clear the roads.
The reason they're blocking it is because it is shutting down trade and shutting down the economy. And they're saying, like, I'm not going to work if I have to be forced to take a vaccine that hasn't had the 10 to 25 years of testing for its safety? Like, are you just forcing the vaccine because it makes you money? Is somebody invested heavily in the vaccine maker? Why is it being forced? And now we're noticing a slowdown. Let me see
This
if
is
I
like my first time ever seeing like Canadian, what do you call it?
fights.
Yeah, because like in the United States, you have like the president standing right there, and they're like, "Mr. President, Mr. President," and when he's talking, they're like arguing with him back and forth.
Right. Yeah, because that's in Parliament. So Parliament would have a lot.
Just domino effect, a whole bunch of stuff added up, and that's what it turned out to be. Is guys hate to say it, but pissed off.
Each day, hundreds of millions of dollars in commerce crosses the Ambassador Bridge, including 25% of Canada's total global exports. So with billions at stake, each hour and each day, the chance of a confrontation between police and protesting truckers increases. In the US and in Canada, patience is wearing thin.
We will have to be resolved one way or the other. And I'm not saying that to suggest that, we're going to go in with battering rams and 1,000 police officers. That may not be the solution, but there has to be a resolution to get this border crossing open so that we do not impact the economies of the United States and Canada.
As the standoff wears on, it remains to be seen whether the first to lose patience will be the protesting truckers or police. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, on the US-Canadian border.
So that's an interesting now, we're apparently this has started up here in the United States. That was the first story I saw up top. Of course, it probably won't let me go back. And again, it is an ethical choice. And it's interesting is you'd have people argue all four sides. Some would say it's unethical to like skip the vaccine because you're going to kill your grandma. Some would say it's unethical to take the vaccine because it's not been tested regularly and it's just making the insurance company's money or something of that nature. So I don't know about the US, but I'm curious about the story if they have a good story about it. It's only 2 minutes. You got to eat mac and cheese first. I just found out who the inventor of mac and cheese was yesterday, and now I forgot who it was. It was one of Thomas Jefferson's cooks.
We're going to begin back at home tonight with the growing frustration over the pandemic and the anger over mandates that has now turned into protests. Protests which are now threatening our already fragile supply chain. The Biden administration tells CBS News that they are working with their Canadian counterparts to resolve these border blockages. And there's a new statement tonight from a group calling themselves the People's Convoy. They just announced plans to rally in California on March 5th and then head east to DC the following day. So we have a lot of news to get to tonight, starting with CBS's Chris Van Cleve, who's in Detroit. Good evening, Chris.
Detroit.
Nora, we're learning that if one of those protests happen in the U.S., law enforcement is going to be focused on protecting people's right to protest, but also preventing disruptions across major cities around the United States. What is disrupted tonight? Anything trying to go across this bridge, and that includes an awful lot of commerce. Tonight, the trucker blockade in Canada is growing, with vaccine mandate protests closing border crossings in 3 provinces, bordering Michigan, North Dakota, and Montana. In Detroit, the Ambassador Bridge remains closed for a 4th day, cutting off about 25% of all trade between the 2 countries. Michigan's governor demanded the Canadian government open the bridge.
They got to clear the path so that commerce can flow, or a lot of people are going to be unemployed.
GM, Ford, and Toyota are among several automakers forced to cut production at several plants in the U.S. and Canada, as far away as Kentucky, due to a lack of parts. At MBH Trucking outside Lansing, these trailers are parked instead of making their cross-border runs. Owner Brian Hitchcock, what portion of your business is cross-Canada, cross-border?
About 40% of our revenue. So we go in and out of there every week.
40% is a big hit.
Yes, it is.
The cross-Canada protest started nearly 2 weeks ago. In Ottawa, authorities have still not been able to get the trucks off the streets.
This can go on for days, weeks, months, it doesn't matter. And if it's not here, it's going to be somewhere else.
Police are now asking for help clearing out the protesters.
More reinforcements means more results. A speedier, safer, more lawful end to this unlawful and unsafe demonstration.
There are new concerns a similar trucker convoy could start this weekend at the Super Bowl. CBS News learning tonight the Department of Homeland Security is surging additional staff to its incident command post there.
I think DHS is going to let things play out and be very alert for the possibility of violence. And that's what would actually trigger a much more serious response from law enforcement.
And it's not just automakers feeling the impact. The White House is acknowledging tonight that significant disruptions are being felt by a number of businesses and industries. Nora?
Chris Van Cleve, thank you.
People think unusual circumstances means complicated taxes, but for TurboTax,
Those are some of our ethics for today. Forced medical intervention. So we had it happen 100 years ago with these folks that have since been honored, but I don't even know if they've still been compensated enough. And it's happening today for, have any of you guys heard the website where you like, if you had adverse effects from the vaccine, you can report it? There's like a national website. I think it's like VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Reaction. So the VAERS website, if there is like myocarditis or other things that come up, that's where we have to report it. So the last few slides, finishing with your paper, ethical principles in social work. Some of the principles we believe in is like acceptance, honoring individualization, the purposeful expression of feelings, so being able to talk to a social worker, non-judgmentalism. That's a tough one as a social worker, because sometimes they come in like, I've got no food and I'm homeless, and you're like, why don't you go get a job? And then it's like, no, it's not that easy. It's really hard in this bad economy to get a job because like they've all shut down, or like there's a protest, or and the last one is objectivity. So just being very objective with our clients. Other ethical principles in social work: having controlled emotional involvement. So like, being able to be there for your client, even emotionally, but not overly emotional, where like we're not professional and can serve them. We also believe in self-determination, which means that we give them the right to choose for themselves. We're not going to make a decision for them. We're not going to force a medical intervention or something of that nature. They can choose to live how they would like to. Confidentiality is number one. So that's one that most people agree with and put in their paper, because you can't go gossip somebody's stuff out there. And then accountability. So holding people accountable. I'll leave that up for you if you. And so, yeah, we kind of went through this when we actually believe and affirm in the Code of Ethics. We show both empowerment when we demonstrate the Code of Ethics, and then victimization when we're not doing it. Like, so the value and principle uphold uniqueness and worth. Like, we empower people by doing that, and we affirm their individuality and affirm their personhood. When we don't do it, it's this side: stereotype, impotence, self-fulfilling prophecy. The second social work value and principle is that we promote self-determination. These are topics you can obviously put in your paper. If we don't do it, if we do promote self-determination, we give them efficacy, competence, partnership. It helps develop alternatives to like their bad situation. It delineates roles to people that they can get help from and seek help from. If we don't do it, it's more like we're controlling them, we're giving them advice. It could be seen as manipulation and paternalism. Incompetence and failure to change, and then dependency. And we don't want that as a social worker. We want to empower our clients to finish with us and graduate and do it on their own. The next one is to communicate to them non-judgmentally. And when we do that, they have more openness and lower defenses. They have also strengths. We use a strengths perspective, active listening, and empathy. When we're not communicating non-judgmentally, often you'll go to blame, pity, and sympathy, and then focus on deficit, so they become defensive, and we see them as helpless. Attaining objectivity. So when we do that, we affirm rationality, we are gaining perspective. When we don't do that, we're having over-identification, coldness almost with our clients, distancing, like they probably don't want to come and see us, bias and distortion. Then the last few here. So if we ensure confidentiality, they're going to trust us, number one. Without that, there's no trust. If you can't keep something confidential, you're a gossip, like telling friends about other friends. Respecting privacy is another big thing. When we don't ensure confidentiality, we have obviously inappropriate communication, and then a breach of confidence or mistrust. The last two, providing access to resources as a social worker, we have increased opportunities for our clients, like we empower them to get things done. And then building linkages, developing policies and programs, and then even coordination of services. When we don't provide access, it's on this right side again. That's the victimization part. There's a lot of red tape. They've got to like do this paperwork. It's hard to see a social worker, hard to get a counselor. There's rules and regulations and even discrimination. There's also stigma. Yeah, the potential effect is stigma and lack of opportunities. And then when we achieve accountability, the potential effect is sanctions and then a process evaluation. So we're accountable with our business or accountable with our service as a social work agency. When we don't, we have the lack of evaluation and then dropping out, even burnout and no felt responsibility. And that's, I know the grid is a lot, but it's actually a lot of good topics for your paper because like you can show when we do the social work values and principles, we've got empowerment on this side. When we don't do them, we've got all these areas of victimization and the potential effect on that side. So that is our last slide. We get to finish 10 minutes early, even though we got to start a few minutes late. Any questions?
The assignment due Friday, that's extra credit or?
Right. If it's in the discussion board, those are extra credits. Just because it's weird to like navigate those. The main assignments, there's enough main assignments that like we don't always have to have a discussion board. You have some classes where you have to have a discussion board every single week. We have enough assignments. We don't need a bunch of discussions. It's fine. There's plenty of work to do in here. Discussion is good for like even questions about stuff too, just like that participation. So, oh, probably not. Mine are only Tuesday and Thursday, so I don't know for sure, but I feel like you are correct on that. I'm hoping that we are. We still have a bunch of stuff to do. Oh, I got to end the stream. And look, I got to check for questions online. Will this be on D2L also? I can share it somehow. Let's see if it's in here. D2L is so tricky. And then, right?
I used Schoology in high school, and where I know that like I used it for 4 years, so I know that like my hand. So D2L is just like.
I don't like it. Did you have it last year on?
I use Schoology.
So are you a sophomore then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. I loved Schoology. I hated it at first because it takes a while to get used to it. But I had Blackboard from 2001 until 2011. Actually, at NKU, I had it 2012 to 2015. I had Canvas at Miami University. I've had Schoology, which was fine as I learned it, and now I've got this. And then you always have to learn something else. It's just like, why?
I feel like with D2L, you just have to do extra steps to do everything.
It does feel that way. And that's partly why I made the discussions extra credit, because I don't like it either. I still want to give that chance, but I mainly only know how to do assignments, discussions, a new announcement. And I know we have a training here, but you only have to forcibly do the training if you had a online class fully. And social work is not accredited fully online, so we can't really use it. I could get it. I am going to the trainings, but it's still confusing as heck. Like, how do I find a file? I would love to share all of these a lot easier with you guys, but I almost have to do like this search every time. PowerPoint 5, right? That was it. And when I do the search, oh, it didn't do 5. Let's do that again. Because oh yeah, is this the end of the 5th week already? Which is insane. How are we already on week 5? That we're, please, here it is. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's a good minor to have for social work?
A good minor is another like social sciences, which are, social and behavioral sciences is our department. So we have criminal justice, we have criminal justice, sociology, psychology. Am I missing one? Criminal justice, political science, sociology, or psychology. Even a business major, if you plan on like doing a social work business of your own, learning how to run a business is something a lot of social workers don't know how to do. And she's a business major. So you could ask her. What would you think? I mean, what were you considering? Maybe I should say it.
I was considering business or
It is a good one, like for real. Yeah, because you're already getting the social and behavioral sciences here, so you don't really need. The nice thing is, if you're already a psychology major, you can double up and probably, get a social work and to get a license. And so the announcement I just sent, are you able to open this zip drive in PowerPoint?
I'm not able to open it on my phone, but I'm going to see if I can.
Okay, that's going to be key to me is zip drives are a pain in the ass. Okay, here's this one in case it doesn't update. Can I like drag it in? Like, do they let you drag in a attachment?
For this essay, can I email it to you? Because like last time you weren't able to.
Oh, here's what will help me a ton. If you just like write your paper, and I think it's in a program I can't open, then just copy it and paste it in the body of D2L. That would be fine. Because the email, I seriously get like hundreds a day and they'll be lost. Like I have to it's so hard. I can search them, which is nice, but this, like it shows you did the assignment. You're not going to get a 0 on it because it's missing or late. And if you ever do get a 0, you still can like return in the assignment. Like I usually want you guys to succeed. So that's. Was it a 0.5 out of 100 or out of 200? Oh, so it was 1 out of 200. That's why. That's an alert for you. I do that just so you're like, holy shit, I need to turn this in the right way. So I'm not going to like make you keep that forever. It's giving you an alert, which anxiety can be good. It's like, I got to do this work right now. And then it's done and it's over with. So anxiety isn't always the worst. But yeah, I always want to get your attention. Like, dude, I can't read this. What is this? Let's see if it lets me drop it. You ever try to drop it in? So, are you able to open it?
Me to do like a bunch of things.
To download it? Okay, I'm going to do it this way then. Let's try this. Can you see now why I don't usually send it to you guys?
Yeah, I got it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is how it looks online.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's the PowerPoint. Which it is the same as your book. So all this is like the cliff notes of your book, which I know makes it a lot easier to look stuff up. And can you copy and paste from your book? Or do they not let you copy or print anything from the book? I would imagine they'd be like, no, sorry, you don't have access to that. File is empty. What are they talking about? You ever get annoyed with computers? So you were able to open it. That's good enough because it's like, I don't understand why the file is empty. That's where it's confusing. Let's try it again. Let's see if because I just downloaded it like today. Computers just really confuse me. And they shouldn't, but they do. Like I know it does make it a lot easier. Like we're able to get access to information and it's all over here. But sometimes I get annoyed by computers. because I don't know how to share all those with you guys. That's why I'm like, all right. Anybody else? All right. I think that I can end it now. We are at like an hour on this one. Dang, how we get? Oh yeah, it goes to 10:45. That's why I'm like, how do we only get like an hour? It's probably because